A robber baron, a robber knight, was a feudal landowner that, seeking to alleviate the financial difficulties, recurred to banditry protected by his feud's legal status. It is a modern historiographical term based on historians' observations of the German nobility. This development is described to have occurred in the late Middle Ages and have been mainly a result of the natural economy displacement by the monetary economy. Some robber barons violated the custom under which tolls were collected on the Rhine either by charging higher tolls than the standard or by operating without authority from the Holy Roman Emperor altogether. They also went outside that society's behavioral norms, since merchants were bound both by law and religious custom to charge a just price for the wares. During the period in the history of the Holy Roman Empire known as the Great Interregnum, the number of tolling stations exploded in the absence of imperial authority. They could resort into robbing ships of the cargoes, stealing entire ships, or kidnapping. The term Raubritter was coined by Friedrich Botschalk in 1810. Germany. Early development. For 1,000 years, from around 800 AD to 1800 AD, tolls were collected from ships sailing on the river Rhine in Europe. During this time, various feudal lords, among them archbishops who held fiefs from the Holy Roman Emperor, collected tolls from passing cargo ships to bolster the finances. Only the Holy Roman Emperor could authorize the collection of such tolls. Allowing the nobility and church to collect tolls from the busy traffic on the Rhine seems to have been an attractive alternative to other means of taxation and funding of government functions. Often iron chains were stretched across the river to prevent passage without paying the toll, and strategic towers were built to facilitate this. The Holy Roman Emperor and the various noblemen and archbishops who were authorized to levy tolls seem to have worked out an informal way of regulating this process. Among the decisions involved in managing the collection of tolls on the Rhine were how many toll stations to have, where they should be built, how high the tolls should be, and the advantages, disadvantages. While this decision process was made no less complex by being informal, common factors included the local power structure, space between toll stations, and ability to be defended from attack. Tolls were standardized either in terms of an amount of silver coin allowed to be charged or an in-kind toll of cargo from the ship. In contrast, the men who came to be known as robber barons or robber knights violated the structure under which tolls were collected on the Rhine either by charging higher tolls than the standard or by operating without authority from the Holy Roman Emperor altogether. Writers of the period referred to these practices as unjust tolls, and not only did the robber barons thereby violate the prerogatives of the Holy Roman Emperor, they also went outside of the society's behavioral norms, since merchants were bound both by law and religious custom to charge a just price for the wares. Great Interregnum. During the period in the history of the Holy Roman Empire known as the Great Interregnum, when there was no emperor, the number of tolling stations exploded in the absence of imperial authority. In addition, robber barons began to earn the newly coined term of opprobrium by robbing ships of the cargoes, stealing entire ships, and even kidnapping. In response to this organized military lawlessness, the Rheinischer Bund, or Rhine League, was formed by and from the nobility, knights, and lords of the church, all of whom held large stakes in the restoration of law and order to the Rhine. Officially launched in 1254, the Rhine League wasted no time putting robber barons out of business by the simple expedient of taking and destroying the castles. In the next 3 years, 4 robber barons were targeted, and between 10 and 12 12 robber castles destroyed or inactivated. The Rhine League was not only successful in suppressing illicit collection of tolls and river robbery. On at least one occasion, they intervened to rescue a kidnapped victim who had been kidnapped by the Baron of Rietberg. The procedure pioneered by the Rhine League for dealing with robber barons, to besiege, capture and destroy the castles, survived long after the League self-destructed from political strife over the election of a new emperor and military reversals against unusually strong robber barons. When the interregnum ended, the new emperor Rudolf of Habsburg applied the lessons learned by the Rhine League to the destruction of the highway robbers at Sunne, torching the castles and hanging them. While robber barony never entirely ceased, especially during the 100 Years' War, the excesses of the heyday during the interregnum never occurred. England. The reign of King Stephen of England was a long period of civil unrest commonly known as the Anarchy. In the absence of strong central kingship, the nobility of England were a law unto themselves, as characterized in this excerpt from the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. When the traitors saw that Stephen was a mild, good-humoured man who inflicted no punishment, then they committed all manner of horrible crimes. They had done him homage and sworn oaths of fealty to him, but not one of their oaths was kept. They were all forsworn and their oaths broken. For every great man built him castles and held them against the king. They sorely burdened the unhappy people of the country with forced labor on the castles, and when the castles were built they filled them with devils and wicked men. By night and by day they seized those they believed to have any wealth, whether they were men or women, and in order to get the gold or silver, they put them into prison and tortured them with unspeakable tortures. For never were martyrs tortured as they were. They hung them up by the feet and smoked them with foul smoke. They strung them up by the thumbs, or by the head, and hung coats of mail on the feet. They tied knotted cords round the heads and twisted it until it entered the brain. They put them in dungeons wherein were adders and snakes and toads, and so destroyed them. Many thousands they starved to death.